So if you've ever scoured YouTube for reviews or comparisons of some gear you're looking for, you've probably come across the term YouTube compression. So what is that term even referring to? Most of the time, people are talking about either audio compression as a signal processing type, where you're actually taking the dynamic range of an audio signal and you're squashing the top of the dynamic signal so it's not as loud in the peaks, so that you can bring the whole thing up and your whole signal is a little bit louder, or just as like a taste kind of thing, tightening up a signal, a bass track or drum track or whatever. My guess is YouTube compression is really not going for signal compression of that type, but more so an actual file compression where it's making the file a little bit smaller, easier to handle on their end, and easier to stream out to us. The problem is when you take a huge file like that and you crunch it down, you don't want your video or audio to be altered to the point where your content creators and your viewers are not going to be happy. So my goal in this video as someone who creates a lot of comparisons for YouTube is to see if there's a measurable and meaningful difference between what I have when I'm finished with my product to what YouTube is kicking back out to everyone else. When I started wondering about this, I did check it out, and there are some great videos about this already. Some of them deal with video and audio kind of together. One of them deals with audio, but there are some angles about this that I thought of that were not covered at all. And it's good to do this every couple years on YouTube because as the technology changes and YouTube keeps up with it, theoretically the YouTube compression is going to become a little more transparent and it's not going to affect the signal as much. Okay, so here we go. Of course, forgot to mention, please like, comment, and subscribe, and that'll make these videos easier for me to keep doing. Thank you. All right, so I have my Logic session open, and what we're going to do is check out the 48 kilohertz WAV, the original WAV file that was exported from Logic. This was using Tune Track Superior drums and an acoustic guitar recorded through a large diaphragm condenser, and the bass was recorded direct, and the guitars were recorded direct as well. So everything was recorded at 48 kilohertz. I just wanted to make sure it was 48K throughout because that's what video uses. And the first thing we're going to do is compare this original 48K wave against the audio from the render from iMovie. And this is the best possible render you can get from iMovie, and it's basically just a 48K. It's just using the original audio. So it should be the same exact audio. So we're going to check that out now. And the way we're going to do that, if we just listen to... This is the original audio. So we have a little drum intro. We've got a little bit of the band going. Then we have an acoustic guitar break just to hear some of those frequencies. Then the whole band comes back. All right, so we're going to check that out against this. This is the render from iMovie, the best possible render you can do. It's in 1080 video-wise. And but what we're going to do is we're going to flip the phase on this original audio. So I've got just the basic Logic gain plugin, and you can flip the phase on that. So if we flip the phase on this track, and then we compare it against this track, then you should hear absolutely no audio, because if you flip the phase on one and turn it against the other, then they cancel each other out. So let's try that. We're going to unmute this one. I'll just solo it when we want to hear it, and we'll see if it works. So here we go. Once the band gets going, we're going to flip this on, and we'll turn it on, and we get nothing, right? So this is the exact audio. There's no difference between the audio that Logic spit out and the audio that iMovie spit out. All right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to go to this track that has the dog on it, and this is actually the download from YouTube. So I took this export from iMovie, uploaded it to YouTube, and then once the HD was available, I downloaded the file from YouTube. So this is the actual file that you get from YouTube. And we're going to do the same thing. This is going to be compared against the 48K wave. So let's listen to that. If it's the exact same thing, we'll hear nothing. All right, so we have some artifacts left over. Once you flip the phase, there's some signal left over that's not the same. Okay, so, and that's what we're looking for to see if it's the same, and obviously it's not. So the question becomes, how meaningful is that bit of artifact that you hear there? So let's kind of listen through some of these other ones. Like this is the 1080p stream from YouTube. So I took the stream from YouTube and I routed it digitally through my computer and recorded it right into Logic. It ended up coming in a little bit lower in gain, but not compressed. It really, I mean, I've been looking at audio files for a long time and it really doesn't look like it's compressed to me. So what I did was I just took the gain here and I turned it up to 2.9 dB. That's where I found where it was the closest to the original audio, just in volume. So we're not talking about actually squashing the dynamic range. We're talking about taking the whole thing down once I download it, and then I'm bringing it back up. So we'll see what that comes out like. It should be mentioned that the original download from YouTube had the same exact gain. I didn't have to do anything in the gain to change it. All right, so let's check out the 1080p stream of this. Turn it on. Obviously some artifacts there. And let's compare that against the download from YouTube. So a little bit different kind of artifact you're hearing there, but nothing too crazy. I thought it'd be interesting if we took, let's mute this 48K. We're just going to do this 1080p stream from YouTube, which is the highest resolution that they offer, against the 144p stream, which is the lowest resolution they offer. So we'll listen to the 1080p. And so when we turn on the 144p, we should hear the difference. Totally gone. So in the audio, let's just check that against like this one. Right, so that's the 1080p versus the original best iMovie export. Right? And then against this, lots of artifacts. 1080 versus 144, exactly the same stream. So when you get that really, really crummy stream from YouTube at 144p, the audio is the same. Unless it can tell if you're on a mobile device, which I don't know. There's a lot going on there. But, you know, on a Wi-Fi connection on my computer, they were exactly the same. So after a while, you start wondering what this really means when you're hearing that bit of artifact coming through. So the next thing we're going to do, this is what I really wanted to do, is we're going to run a frequency analyzer on all this stuff. I tried it with this nice frequency analyzer from FabFilter, but interestingly enough, I mean, this is great, all the resolution there. But so the interesting thing is, if we take this FabFilter analyzer and we run one file through it twice, just the same file twice, and screen record each, and then lay them on top of each other, these curves, these frequency curves are not the same. I really don't know why. The onboard Logic one was a lot better. So we're going to check out all these files kind of on top of each other in a frequency analyzer to see what we can find there. All right, here we go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is compare the original 48K audio to all the different iterations from exporting from iMovie, then downloading from YouTube or streaming from YouTube. So I'm going to be doing two files at the same time, two EQ files, the images from them, one laid on top of the other and one with the opacity down a little bit so you can see the individual EQ curve from each file. Obviously, we're just going to hear one audio file per example. If we heard both audio files, that would be kind of a mess. So each time we're going to hear the audio file that's being compared against the 48K. And of course, the irony is that we're hearing this at whatever YouTube compression we have. So, all right, so let's go ahead. By the way, the red curve, as they separate out into two different curves, the red is the original wave, and then the bluish greenish one is the new one, whichever we're looking at. So, and when they're together, it just ends up being a white line. I don't know why that is, but it seems to work okay. of these two are exactly the same, so we really shouldn't see any difference. But we can kind of get a feel for what the files are going to look like. So you can see we've got some detail up around 20K in here. Okay, so now we go to the download from YouTube of the same file. So here's the red, that's the original. Here's this sharp drop off at 16K and like kind of blue-green. So you can see some difference in the lows at times. There's more in the acoustic. But you can see some, just kind of some fuzzy stuff. You see the green come out, the red come out up here. But mostly this was just that sharp drop off of the downloaded version where you get more high-end detail up here. Okay, here's the 1080 stream. So this is where it gets interesting, because we have this detail in like up to 20K back. I don't know why that is, because the download doesn't have it, but the stream has it. And you can see there's a big difference in the lows here. You get some fuzzy artifacts in the mids here. But yeah, that upwards towards 20K comes back in the stream. Okay, here's that less defined iTunes export. Again, you can see that drop off here. And to me, I see a lot more of the fuzziness in here. Altogether, I mean, it matches pretty well. The decay on that one, you saw some differences, but these really match surprisingly well. Oh yeah, the detail in the mids on this one. This is the YouTube download. So it's a much more drastic drop off here. Lots of stuff happening in the mids. Man, it's still pretty close. I mean, most people really can't hear above 16K at this point, and for guitar material, there's not a whole lot up there anyway. We'll talk about that more a little bit. Here we got the stream. Okay, so again, we've got that high-end stuff back, but it's very different. The lows are really odd here. I mean, that's very soft. Lots of differences in the high-end detail here. Okay, so that was a lot of fun to do. I really recommend before you make up your mind, go to the description and check out the WAV files that are in there. I not only took the tracks like back to back in their entirety, but I took little snippets of just like one part of the drums that were soloed and kind of went back and forth between the original wave and one of the degradations, the original wave, another degradation, the original wave. So you're constantly getting refreshed by the original wave. I did that with the drums and I did that with the acoustic guitar. So those files are in there. Please check them out. It is unbelievable after hearing with our eyes for this whole video, to go and try to tell the difference with just your ears. And I gotta say, I can still hear 18K. I don't think I can hear above 18K at this point, and I'm lucky. I've been really good about wearing earplugs my whole life. I started off as a drummer and really played a lot of drums. So I can still hear a little bit of that 18K. I can definitely hear 16K. So I couldn't really tell a difference. I mean, as far as a big difference, it was like sometimes I would think, oh yeah, when I'm listening to, the 1080 stream from the H.264 codec, I was like, oh yeah, I'm hearing it. But then it would bounce back to the original wave because, like I said, I bounced back and forth. So you keep on getting refreshed with that super ultra hi-fi wave file. And every time I got blasted back to that wave file, I was like, maybe I don't hear it. So, I mean, maybe you have some hearing up in those upper frequencies that I don't. Maybe I can still hear 18K, but maybe it's not super detailed. But I mean, the fact is, most of the music that we have, the detail and the meaningful pitch and everything is in the frequencies that are lower. And I mentioned a little bit about guitar and how electric guitar doesn't really live up there so much. And it really doesn't. Of course, like if you're sitting there soloed with a guitar, you can really hear a lot of those awesome frequencies and it's such an enjoyable experience. But as soon as you're playing with a band, the guitar lives below that. My favorite thing to do is just sit down with an electric guitar and my small little Swart amp, or, even just right in front of my monitors with like my really nice UA amps. I love that crazy detail in what I'm listening to. And I'm pretty picky, so I really had trouble telling the difference. So let me know what you think. I think it comes down to, yes, there is definitely a measurable difference in the YouTube compression between that and like your original WAV files. But I don't think it's a very meaningful difference. I think YouTube has done a good job of making sure that when they're crunching their files down to make sure that they have enough space for the bajillion files that get uploaded every day, they're doing a really good job of making sure the quality stays intact. It's not exact. We found out that those files are not exact, but it's really analogous. And I think it is, for the most part, I think it's pretty much beyond most people's ability to hear a difference. And within that, let's say you can hear a difference there. That difference is going to be so minute that the way that most people say, like in a comment section, when they say, oh, this must be YouTube compression that's not enabling me to hear the difference between these two different pieces of gear or whatever. I think that's just not the case, because if the difference is so minute that whatever difference it is between two different Strat pickups, that difference is going to affect both Strat pickups the same way, basically, unless they're drastically different and one of the Strat pickups lives in 16 to 20K or something. But I think the point is those differences are going to affect things equally. And there's still a good deal of mid-range detail and upper mid-range detail and even high-range detail in there that stays pretty much intact. So that's my take on it. You may disagree with me, and I really recommend you check out those WAV files. And just try to be honest about it, because we're getting into subjective stuff because, for instance, they tell you when you're mixing a track, if you're trying to decide between takes, don't even look at the waveforms, because, and I do this all the time, I'm doing vocal takes and I'm like, trying to hear the difference between this vocal take and the next vocal take. And just the look of one vocal take might be more pleasant, and I'll be like, I think I like this one. But then if I close my eyes and I don't look at them, I sometimes have a different opinion. Sometimes I think they sound basically the same. So we really got to watch when we're hearing with our eyes. And it can be a cool thing. It means that if you see a performer and they're putting everything they have into it and they're fun to watch, it's going to make them sound better. We are really wired to, get a whole narrative from the big picture, meaning our sight, our sound, the temperature in the room. All these different things can really affect how we perceive a performance or any kind of music. So I'm done ranting. Let me know what you think in the comments. And I really think that the YouTube compression is measurable, but not significant, and not a meaningful difference when we're talking about a lot of these gear comparisons. So, all right, I'll see you next time. Take care.